So I wanted to answer Silva's question from last week before we started with new material. She talked about her salt being too low. And I emailed her with a couple of thoughts I had after researching it a little bit. And I don't know if those answered her issue, but if you drink too much water, more than you should have for your body weight, you'll wash your salts out. And if you take hot baths where you soak for half an hour, it's a big salt dump. You dump a bunch of salt. So it's important to make sure that you're drinking the right amount of water and that you are including a little bit of salt in your diet if you need it like that. Like if her salt or her sodium is too low, then yeah, that would be important. And also not to drink too much water because that'll wash your sugar out as well. But I hope that's helpful for her. So we're going to start to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
But then I have this question. I have learned that when you are thirsty, then the body really is crying, give me water. So you should actually drink before you get thirsty. And yeah. So, but I don't remember what you told me that I should drink now if it was right. But I'm drinking much more than what the requirement from this book. I mean, I don't know how much I drink, but I drink much more. Carolyn, are you aware that so-called vitamin D is in fact a steroid hormone, and that qualification determines calcium to bind and accumulate in arteries and kidneys? Are you also aware that cholecalciferol is used as a rat poison?
Cholecalciferol. Okay. Yeah, I knew that vitamin D was a hormone. That's true. And they don't actually, Dr. Reams doesn't recommend that you use it unless you absolutely have to. And he says how to use it. It's like a medicine. So I wouldn't take cholecalciferol. I'm not sure what vitamin D I have, but I think that I probably researched it before I got it. And if you get it from daily manufacturing, I'm pretty sure it'll be the right form. So you can look that up. And also on the chart, if you get this book, it will tell you how to use vitamin D and when to use it. And it's only in very specific times because it's very powerful and it can be a stimulant, and we don't want to use it unless we have to. So yeah, I agree with what this person is saying. It's true. So we have to follow the chart. The chart's important. Was there anything else that they wanted to ask? I can't, since I can't see the question, I'm not sure if I've answered it.
Okay. Yeah. Do you want me to read it again, or did she answer it, Brother F? So you are saying that I was just buying 50 units of vitamin D on iHerb. So maybe that's
and on the chart for you, I'll have to find your chart. There's a time when it's important to use it because getting your pHs balanced is critically important. As a matter of fact, it's more important than whether something, this was surprising to me when I got the help that I needed at the time that I had cancer, and Helen Wakehoff was helping me, that it's more important than whether something's organic or not. It's more important than whether it has some kind of weird ingredients or not to get your pH balance. That's like the first critical thing so that your body can begin to function properly. And so it's just a step that you take when you need it. And otherwise you don't need it. You keep it on the shelf till you need it, and then you don't take it every day. So like, for instance, let's see, I don't have, well, okay, so I'm not going to tell you what to do. You have your chart. You can look at it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. If, could you give us the chart, please? But this different charge for different people, Brother F.
Yes, what if he doesn't mind giving me his weight, I can take a picture of it later and send it to you to forward to him.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
So
today was
he's writing 76 kilos.
okay. All right. I'm going to forward his chart to you later for him. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So what is pH? This is going to talk about the proof of ions. And when you measure your body's potential of hydrogen or pH through the urine and saliva, you're measuring a ratio or a comparison of acid to alkaline substances or ions in your body's fluids. The pH number is a power number in itself called a logarithm. That's any pH number is a power of the number of 10. Therefore, a pH of 6 simply means 10 to the 6th power, or 10 times itself 6 times. That actually equals 1 million ions, while a pH of 5 means 10 multiplied times itself 5 times, and that equals 100,000 ions. This means that a pH of 7.5 is 10 times more alkaline from a logarithm point of view than a pH of 6.5. Or it could also be said that the pH of 6.5 is 10 times more acid from a logarithm point of view than the pH of 7.5. And by the same principle, a pH of 5.5 would be 100 times more acid than a pH of 7.5. Now, when you look at the numbers, it doesn't seem like that much, does it? But it's really a lot. So it's sort of shocking to realize that when the pH moves from 6.4 to 7, it actually translates into an increase of more than 7,488,800 additional alkaline chemical ion charges per unit volume of the extracellular fluid. The pH scale is like the Richter scale that measures the force of earthquakes. Therefore, an earthquake of 7 is 10 times stronger than an earthquake of 6, while an earthquake of 8 is 100 times stronger than 6. So to reinforce how significant a very small change in pH is, let's look at the actual chemical ion quantity change. When the pH swings below the ideal of 6.4 down to 6.2, that's a change of 36% in the total chemical ion quantity expressed in the pH, while a swing from 6.4 up to 6.6 is a change of 58% in the total chemical ion amount. In other words, what appears to be a very small change, say from 6.4 to 7, actually represents a huge difference in real reactive chemical ion numbers. That's why your most ideal health is dependent on pH being kept as close to 6.4 as possible at all times. It's actually dependent on the ideal calcium reserves in the body that's built and maintained by ideal calcium intake in the diet. Now we're going to talk about calcium types. And that may have gone, kind of gone over everybody's head. I know I said it rather quickly, but you can play it back in the video later. So there are many calcium preparations that you will encounter on the shelf at your health food store and pharmacy. Some of the more popular ones contain either calcium carbonate, which is from ground limestone or oyster shell, or calcium phosphate and calcium lactate. In more recent years, calcium citrate has become highly recommended type. Additionally, the health food store may have a few of the less popular but more expensive calciums known as calcium aspartate, calcium orotate, calcium gluconate. Some of these calciums are better than others, and usually you will find 2 or 3 types of calcium blended in a combination with vitamin D. As mentioned earlier, I do not recommend mixtures of calcium or calcium-containing vitamin D mixed in. So in order for calcium to react in the body's chemistry and control the acid-alkaline ratio, while feeding the maximum needed calcium to the cells and tissues, the chemical reaction characteristics of each type of calcium must be known and matched to your pH control needs. The calcium used in most preparations sold over the counter include calcium sulfate, calcium lactate, calcium carbonate, calcium phosphate, calcium hydroxide, calcium gluconate, calcium citrate, calcium orotate, and calcium aspartate. Of these, only calcium sulfate, calcium lactate, and calcium phosphate are strong acidifying calciums. So those three are acid forming, the sulfate, lactate, and phosphate, which makes sense because you think of the ion that's attached to it. So while calcium carbonate and calcium hydroxide are strong alkalizing calciums, and the rest are fairly neutral in their acid alkaline reactions, but they're very usable types of calciums. So therefore, the calcium compounds that you will see recommended in this kit are custom prepared to work with the body chemistry, which was why Jim Daly, who worked with Dr. Reams, he has all these separate calciums by themselves so that when you take what's on your chart, you're taking what you need, not what somebody else needs. And where was I here? The rest are fairly neutral, but they're very usable. Therefore, the calcium compounds that you will see recommended, they're custom prepared to work with the body chemistry according to the acid alkaline principles that I've used for over a quarter century, originally developed by Dr. Carrie Reams. These custom preparations that work best for your calcium pH program are calcium gluconate, calcium lactate, calcium hydroxide carbonate, also known as Cal2, hydrated liquid calcium hydroxide, known as lime water, which you and I are making, and calcium phosphate, known as Mincol. In the charts and associated information that follows, you will see these calcium types, and you will also see how they are recommended according to the averaging of the pH of the multiple urine and saliva pH tests. Then, as you select the chart that applies to your gender, your age, and your weight, you will see a suggested dose for those particular types of calcium proper for you to use to control your particular acid alkaline needs caused by a calcium deficiency. So to start with, step one is to determine your average pH. So you can get the pH paper, and using a 1-inch long piece of tape for each test, measure the pH of a fresh sample of urine and saliva and record the results. Do this 2 times per day for 7 days at the same time of day. The best time to do it is about 2 hours after breakfast and 2 hours after lunch. It's important to wait the 2 hours because it allows the body's initial alkaline digestive enzyme reaction at the post-meal action called the alkaline tide, but it allows that to stabilize. So once it's stabilized, a pH test can be done to reveal the true calcium needs. Because a pH will not move back to its ideal 6.4 range and stay there when there's a calcium deficiency, the test is performed twice per day in order to include all the ranges that result from calcium deficiency. Because we have a circadian rhythm that goes up and down, but we want that rhythm to be within a certain range. As commonly causes the pH of the body fluids to yo-yo instead of remaining stable around 6.4. One of the things I learned from Challen Wakehoff was that the pH of your water that you drink is eventually going to end up being pretty much the pH of your urine. So if you test your water and you find out that it's too alkaline or it's too acid, it's affecting your body's pH. So here's the directions to test your saliva. Work up enough.
Marilyn, can I just show, instead of using this paper, which I find very difficult to see what is really the number, but I bought this one as Temu.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and it's just between $6 and $7. So you just push.
Oh, that's nice.
And then leave it in for maybe a minute, and then it, regulates and show what the pH is.
Yeah, can you check your saliva with it?
No, because that is, I don't know. I have not tried. I should try because
I don't think you could get enough saliva. But yeah, that's great. That's super. Can you also use that for conductivity to show your sodium?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Okay. Sometimes they do both.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So, all right. So, you get enough saliva in your mouth to totally immerse 1/2 of the 1-inch piece of pH paper. And I use a spoon and spit in it. So if you have difficulty producing saliva or your mouth seems dry, You can visualize yourself cutting into a large juicy lemon and putting the wedge in your mouth to suck the juice. That can be fairly effective. Or you can take a new toothbrush that's never had toothpaste on it and gently move it around in your mouth, and that can stimulate some saliva. So you immerse half the 1-inch piece of paper into the saliva in your mouth and immediately remove it. So immediately, while the tape is wet, match the color to the proper color chart on the side of the pH tape dispenser. Record your results. So he says here, don't test the pH of the first morning urine or saliva because it's too concentrated due to the lack of water drinking during the night. Nor does the morning urine show the body chemistry under its usual peak load. So don't do it first thing in the morning. So continue to record your results. I'm sorry.
Sorry to interrupt you. We have a question here from Mr. F. My urine pH ranger is between 7.2 in the morning and 8.2 during day. Is this okay? Am I too alkaline?
You are too alkaline. Well, I'm not your doctor, and if you feel okay, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but that range is going to make you, I'm going to guess that you would feel like you can't sleep. You're going to be awake, but you don't feel well, and possibly have some constipation problems. You're just going to be sort of dazed feeling, just feel dazed. You can't think clearly. You're not getting oxygen to your brain. You're not uptaking your vitamin C. You're not uptaking your calcium, and you probably don't feel very well most of the time. So I'm just guessing, that's what that would make you feel like. But if you take some vitamin C, that can make you more acid because your urine, I don't know if we've talked about this before, but your saliva is the strength of your liver, and it shows one thing, and your urine shows the after effects after digestion, whether you've had the resources in your body to keep you alkaline through the digestion process. So your diet is going to affect your urine, and that's how you get that back into line. You can get it back into line by taking a little vitamin C, ascorbic acid. I have L-ascorbate, which is the nature's kind of ascorbic acid powder, what I can use for that purpose. But I don't want to take it if I'm too acid. But if you're too alkaline like you are, you might take a small amount and see how you react to it. Give yourself 20 minutes and then see how you reacted to it and see if you feel better. My guess is you're going to feel better.
He's writing, I feel very okay and my cancers are in check. I use the alkalinity as a strategy.
Okay, strategy. So did you ask him if he took that 2 hours after a meal?
Yeah, Mr. F, did you take that 2 hours after a meal? Yes.
Okay, that's good. All right. Well, he may find that he feels better than he realizes he'll feel. We can be so accustomed to feeling a certain way. And at the same time, if his saliva is more acid, it will balance it out to where he still feels okay, because the saliva has twice the ability to affect how you feel than the urine does, because it's the after effect of digestion. But your saliva has to do with the strength of your liver. So if your liver pH is too alkaline, it's going to have twice the effect on you as your urine. So it would balance out. If let's say your saliva is not that alkaline, then you still might feel okay. So anyway, let's see, shall I move on, or you got that? Or
yeah, please.
Yeah, okay. So repeat. He can just experiment with it and see if it helps him. That's all. We're all different. So use the same technique with the urine and immerse about half that piece into the stream of urine immediately while the tape is wet. Match the color to the proper color chart and then record your results. So if you take a piece of test tape from the 5.5 to the 8.0 range and you test either your urine or your saliva, if the reading is above 5.5, then you're done testing. that sample and can record that number. However, if your reading is 5.5, then you would take a test strip from the other reel of the 3.0 to 5.5 and test again, just to see how acid you really are, because you might be more acid than that test strip can reveal. So there's two different kinds of tape. One pH paper is 3.0 to 5.5, and the other one is 5.5 to, I think, 14. And so if you get down below 5.5 on one, it's not showing your real pH. You have to get the other reel that's 3.0 to 5.5, but that's pretty acid. That would be getting really acid. Okay, so remember, do not test your saliva if you have just eaten, if you just had gum, candy, or breath mint. Also, if you've just brushed your teeth with any dental agent, your saliva pH will not be reliable. In order to assure that your saliva test is accurate, it's best to wait at least 30 minutes after having any of the above items in your mouth. Then, to make sure your saliva test will be accurate, rinse your mouth thoroughly with distilled water first. Do the color comparison under good, strong, natural light. Artificial light, unless true full spectrum, can throw off the reading. Okay, so now, choosing the right calcium. I don't know if you're able. Wait, I didn't quite finish. I'm sorry. He has another paragraph. At the end of testing for 7 days, you will now have 14 pH numbers for urine and 14 pH numbers for saliva. So you average them out. You add them all up, add up the urine, average them out, add up the saliva, average them out. Now you know what your average pH numbers are. Because during the day, we have, like I mentioned, the circadian rhythm. You could be testing yourself at a time when your pH is very high. And that doesn't mean that it's stable at that. It changes throughout the day. It has a reason why it does that. So then we can read how you choose the right calcium. And I don't know if you're able to show that picture of the right calcium chart. Is that possible, or is that?
Which you sent me on WhatsApp?
Yeah, on the app. Is that possible to show that, or shall I just?
Yeah, I can see it quite well on that picture.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I didn't know if anybody else could see it.
No, the others cannot see it.
Okay. All right. So in the choosing the right calcium chart on page 26, you will be able to determine which types of calcium would best work for improving your body pH range. Select the pH range on the chart that you have determined from the average you have calculated with your urine and saliva testing. Read across to find the primary first calcium. This is the most important and basic calcium to any supplement program. In other words, this is calcium for all occasions and chemistries. So you'll see the columns. One column says the first calcium, then there's a column that says the second calcium, and then there's a column for vitamin C and one for vitamin D. So locate the second calcium. This one is the one that will help correct the acid-base imbalances. If your pH has become too acid, below 6.2, or too alkaline, above 6.6, the calcium recommended will help move it back toward the ideal range of 6.2 to 6.6. The ideal is 6.4. Additionally, you will be able to determine if you need vitamin C or vitamin D. Vitamin C is acid reacting. It will push the pH in the acid direction. Vitamin D is alkaline reacting. It will push the pH in the alkaline direction. You will see from the chart which ones are suggested when the pH is at a certain level. You will see pointed out on the chart under vitamin C that fresh onion soup is a good source of neutral, non-acid reacting vitamin C when you need it when you're acid. You can use it in abundance when you're too acid. Under the saliva, see, vitamin C is what holds our cells together. Under the saliva pH section, you will see another calcium listed for all pH ranges. This is calcium citrate. This calcium is used as a backup calcium to the first two, especially in females. Females require 7 times more mineral in their chemistry during childbearing years than males do. Calcium citrate can be used for males as well if calcium gluconate is not available as the first calcium. Vitamin B12 requirements are also shown by the average saliva pH. As the column on the chart shows, you need B12 supplementation when the saliva pH is below 6.4 and sometimes when at 6.4. The bottom part of the choosing the right calcium chart shows other types of nutrients that are vital to proper pH control and assisting calcium reactions. So the first is a digestive enzyme. It's important to use digestive enzymes that will work in all basic foods with carbohydrates, fats, proteins, as well as cellulose. So remember, digestive enzymes are not a replacement for calcium. Without proper calcium available in the digestive enzymes the digestive enzymes will not put your food energy on the frequency that your body needs. So see section titled Digestive Enzymes, page 37 for suggestions on what to use. So we're not there yet. In addition, 2 other supplements are suggested by the average pH of the saliva. One is an iron supplement known as ferrotonic. And I'll say right here that they have lost their source for ferrotonic. That was made specifically for daily manufacturing. And so, I would think just eat a handful of raisins every day if you can, or something, or molasses, eat some molasses for iron because they no longer have ferrotonic available. So the other is called CoQ10. CoQ10, yeah, that's important. When the saliva pH goes below 6.4, CoQ10 can be helpful in countering the toxic byproducts of indigestion. So note the 2 columns listing the valuable foods and 1 column listing foods to avoid. These should be quite self-explanatory. Yeah, I think so. You'll get a chance to look at it and it'll make sense to you. Lime water is a special liquid calcium formula developed by Dr. Reeves because it is strongly alkaline. It will taste to some individuals very bitter when taken by itself. It is not a problem to take it straight by itself. It's just very bitter, and most people prefer not to do so. Therefore, you can add the lime water to some other liquid. The best liquid to take lime water with is skimmed or non-fat milk. If you cannot use milk, place it in juice. A very small amount, a couple of tablespoons or juice or milk is all that is necessary, and the bitterness will not be evident. You'll see a note right under the title of the chart, choosing the right calcium. This says always included mineral colloids for calcium phosphate source. It's vital to your calcium program that you pay attention to that note and heed its recommendation for a complete explanation about mineral colloids. So, I'll just say one thing. It seemed like when I first started doing this, I thought, boy, that's a lot of stuff to get, but they have such reasonable prices on their vitamins or on their minerals. Daily manufacturing just has such reasonable prices, and they have a lot of capsules in their bottles, and you don't need them all the time. You need them for a couple of weeks, and then you recheck, and then sometimes you're done for a while. So it just to get you shifted into the right range. And plus, you're not taking a bunch of other stuff at the same time. If you do decide to do this program for a week or two, you won't be taking all your other stuff because it'll interfere with your program.
So you're saying this program you can use a couple of weeks? Now you
can go a couple of weeks and retest and see if you've shifted, and then you might have to change the ones you use because you have to change. You have to shift as your body shifts. You have to change what you're doing. Which includes. Oh, and my book is being delivered today. I'm excited because it's going to show the diets for people's different ranges. If you decide to do it, but
maybe you should share those people who watch this program. They don't know what kind of book you are talking about.
Okay. Well, Chellan Wakehoff had a book. He's passed away now, and there was only one book available. I searched everywhere, and they wanted $80 for it. But Silva purchased that book for us, and so it's going to be delivered today. And in this book, it's titled "The Only Health Guide You Will Ever Need," and in the back, there's almost every question you can think of, and a source of information from Dr. Reeves of what to do and what's happening in your body. So it's pretty awesome. But this little book right here, the Calcium Kit, it's for lay people like me and possibly you. You might be able to do the other book. I also have this textbook from Dr. Reams, which is very in-depth, but this makes it so simple that you're only dealing with the first half of the equation. We don't have to worry about the rest of the equation, pretty much. We just follow the first half of the equation. And what you do is after you have average testing, you do it for 2 weeks, the chart says, then you retest and see where you're at. And you might not need to do so much anymore. Then you have to shift and maybe take less. So where were we? It's important to run a retest of your urine and saliva periodically. I suggest you run a second test series in approximately 6 weeks. So he says 6 weeks after you have followed the program faithfully. Depending on what changes have taken place in your pH averages, readjust the program according to the charts. Retest at your discretion, but I suggest at least 4 times per year. And he says, be well. And I don't know if you feel like that's a good place to stop for now. We've covered a lot, or if we should cover. The next section is using the calcium pH charts to determine your calcium needs. And I don't know if you want to go into it or not.
Okay.
The next section is about using the calcium pH charts. And of course, she's going to forward these to you. I'll take pictures of them as needed, and she'll forward them to you. So the full calcium pH chart, it begins on page 68. It provides information about how much of the right type of calcium you should be consuming. And much of this is just to give you a little support until you get your diet right, to where you have more greens in your diet, more things that are high in calcium and high in potassium. Potassium is a very important way to get your pH back up if you're too acid. There's a lot of foods that have potassium. There's not only bananas, but coconuts, potatoes, yams, mangoes, papayas. The internet says that we're supposed to have 4,700 milligrams of potassium a day, and I just don't know anybody who does that. And if you're too alkaline, you don't want to do that. So let's see. The calcium pH charts are designed to be self-explanatory. However, if you do not line up the pHs with the columns properly, you may not get the right information. So as you are reading across the columns, be sure that you're choosing the information that's in line with the average pH as you have determined and chosen. After you have determined your average pH for both the urine and saliva, leaf through the charts. Pick the chart that fits your gender, your age range, and your weight range. If a chart does not have a weight range, go only by the gender and age. First, find the average urine pH that matches your calculations. Read across the columns associated with that particular average urine pH to determine what and how much is suggested of the various calciums and other necessary nutrients. Now find the average saliva pH that matches your test results. Again, read across the columns associated with that particular average saliva pH to determine what and how much is suggested. Where a suggestion is given of a possible range, such as 3 to 6 a day, choose the smaller first. Start with 3 a day. You can increase to the higher dose in the future if the average pH has not changed or has changed little toward the ideal pH of 6.4. Note that the calciums are not recommended according to milligram amounts. They are recommended for the effect on the pH. That's why you'll notice that the further the pH is from 6.4, the more of some types of calcium are used. The further off the ideal pH your test is, the more calcium will be lost in moving the pH toward the ideal. Therefore, milligram amounts are pretty much meaningless. So the better the pH effect, the more efficient calcium will be, and the less will be required. I'm worried that she's missing a lot of stuff. Well, she can watch it later though. Okay. Pay attention to the parts of the charts where notes are stated, because the notes are important too. Remember, the ideal range is 6.3 to 6.5, or as close to ideal 6.4 as possible. with 6.2 to 6.6 as the extreme outside of the range. If you test consistently in that range, that's inside 6.2 to 6.6, it means you should be thankful that your acid-base balance or ratio appears stable. However, you still need a little extra calcium. So in this case, choose calcium gluconate as the preferred calcium. So if your range is between 6.2 and 6.6, it sounds like the only calcium that you need to buy is calcium gluconate, because you're really pretty stable. Where the chart says per meal, that's assuming that you eat 3 meals a day. If you eat 2 meals a day, then it's suggested that the total recommendation for the day be divided between the 2 meals. Vitamin B12 is vital for your liver. If you have any history of pernicious anemia in your genetic family, you may be subject to developing the inability to pick up B12 from your diet or supplements. In that case, it's recommended that you get intramuscular injections of B12 at periodic intervals from your doctor. I had a problem with that because all the doctor had was cyanocobalamin, and that's the cyanide form of B12. And if you have methylation issues, which I do and many other people do, we want methylcobalamin, or the other one. There's another one as well, or hydroxycobalamin. So sometimes you can't get that from the doctor. The standard or most common type of B12 is cyanocobalamin. It's packaged under many different brand names. However, be aware there's a much better form available, not commonly used, not as readily available. This is injectable B12 called hydroxycobalamin. It's picked up and held in the liver more readily than cyanocobalamin. Ask your doctor about using hydroxycobalamin. You'll usually see better results. Now I'm going to stop right there. We are at another section called important product information, and I'm going to stop right there. We are almost halfway through the book already, and
Okay.
there's a lot of charts in the back, so we're about halfway through the book.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm using this B12. Can you see it?
Oh, very nice. Yes. Excellent.
And they taste so good. And it says take two a week. So I took a little bit more, and suddenly my B12 was much too. I mean, it was 1350. I don't know if.
Oh, was that a blood test? Was that a blood
Yeah,
test?
yeah, that was a blood
Okay,
test.
well, blood tests aren't very reliable. They're just like taking a snapshot, because your blood changes 30 seconds later, it'll be different. So, Dr. Reams worked basically on the lymph fluid. The lymph fluid is where he was really a brilliant man. And the more I read, the more I study this, the more I know that he was really brilliant. He was a biophysicist. But that was useful to know that. But at that moment, you had a lot of B12 in your blood. But that doesn't mean that your organs were uptaking it, unfortunately. It was in your blood.
Okay.
So, but you can tell, like, if it's having an effect on your saliva pH, because then you know it's working. Because that means that your liver strength is your saliva. And if your saliva is more acid and you take B12 and it gets better, then you know your liver's picking it up.
Okay, so if can you please repeat what should the saliva on the pH on the saliva be again?
6.4 ideally, but if it's between 6.2 and 6.6, then you're really stable, we just read, and the only calcium you'll probably need is calcium gluconate. But but that is for your liver. And that shows an anemic, that you're B12 anemic if it's acid. And CoQ10 can make your saliva more alkaline, like within minutes. That stuff is amazing. You already have that, don't you?
Yeah, I think I got a little bit confused now, because my pH on the urine is too acid.
Yeah.
So
well, that's because, yeah. Oh, CoQ10 won't really have any influence on your urine. CoQ10 is for your saliva, but that's why when you look at your chart, it separates the saliva pH from the urine pH, and each one will tell you what to do for each specific thing. Like the B12 is for your liver, And that's what you use it for, because you have B12 anemia. If you're too acid, if your saliva is too acid, then you have B12 anemia, and that's what you use it for. But your urine being too acid, the B12 won't affect your urine. What will affect your urine will be potassium and calcium. There are this is funny that we're talking about this now, because you were using MMS.
Mm-hmm.
That's a sodium hypochlorite, right? So it's like chlorine. It's a chlorine salt. And that's one of the three elements that are anionic in nature on the periodic table. You'll find them there. There's calcium, potassium, and chlorine. And so you might be getting some alkalinity out of using that. I'm just not sure, but I do know that potassium and calcium will help bring up your urine pH to make it more alkaline. And the things that they recommend, like vitamin D, when you need it. Vitamin D is important, especially if you live in a country that doesn't have a lot of sunshine. It's like the gentleman said earlier, it's a hormone, and it's a very important one. I had my gene typing done. I have a whole report, and genetically, I need vitamin D. It's something that I have to take, and I have to take methylfolate and stuff. But anyway, so here we are. If there's any questions.
Yeah, maybe you can share a little bit. Well, you're going to give your testimony on Sunday, so you shouldn't go too much into it. But what has this lime water done for you? Have you seen good results in the pH?
Yes, I did. Well, I'll have to explain. Dr. Reams had a formula for making lime water. And as you know, if you're a gardener, you've used lime in your garden. Limestone, which is like shells that have been somewhere, and they made a deposit of shells and made a hard stone. And people take it and they grind it up and they put it in their soil to sweeten the soil, because it's calcium. It's the shells, it's calcium. So as a matter of fact, he was an agronomist as well, and it's an important part of his gardening. So he didn't give how he made his lime water to anybody. He sold, before he died, he gave his formula to daily manufacturing. So Ava and I have been working this out, and we've got this formula kind of down. And yesterday was my first test, and I was afraid of taking too much. I'm really cautious with this stuff because it can be very caustic, but I have some pharmaceutical grade calcium hydroxide. And so I thought that might be even stronger than the lime flower. So I better be careful. So I made it, and I looked at how many milligrams were in each serving on the lime water that I had gotten from Dailies. It was 27 milligrams per 2 tablespoons. So I figured out how many tablespoons were in the quart of lime water, which is, there were 64 tablespoons. So I multiplied that times 27, and I knew how many milligrams of calcium hydroxide should be in the whole quart. So then I got my pharmaceutical grade scale out, and pharmaceutical grade calcium hydroxide. I measured out, figured out how many milligrams it should be. It was 864. And I added it, and I put in the black salt, because he used sulfur water, and then distilled water, and shake it, let it set for 24 hours, strain it really well. And then I thought, well, I better test this pH paper. It was so alkaline, it was scary. And it took 2 tablespoons of that with a cup of distilled water to get the pH just right. So I took 1/8 of a teaspoon of it. This is the big test. I was kind of scared, I have to say. It's pretty risky. So I took 1/8 of a teaspoon of it, and I felt kind of a warmth happening, which meant to me that the energy was being created, because the calcium is anionic and it spins one direction, and the and cations spin the other direction, and energy was being created and heat was being created. I could feel warmth, and I felt a peaceful happiness inside of myself that just spread. And I was like, oh, I feel joyful. It was a lovely experience. And so I thought, okay, I don't have to be afraid of this. And after 2 hours, I tested my urine pH, and I realized, okay, that was a little bit, but it wasn't enough. So with my lunch, I took a fourth of a teaspoon of it, and uh, and I felt that feeling of just happiness happening. I just felt calmness, and it was lovely. And so then 2 hours later, I tested, and I was like a 6.2. So I knew it was working, but I didn't want to take it before bed because it would make me so alkaline. My sugar would drop, and then I couldn't sleep. Because that can happen at night. You have to get up and pee, get up and pee. It's because your sugar's dropping, and because you're too alkaline at nighttime and you're not sleeping. And so you have to get up and eat a bite of fruit, or in my case, I was down to point 0.2 recently. So 0.2 bricks on the refractometer. I had to eat something. But anyways, I know it's working. I'm very pleased. Today I took some with breakfast, and a couple hours later I was at 6.4. I'm very pleased with it, actually. So a fourth of a teaspoon seems to be my dose.
Wow, so you should just use, a quarter of a teaspoon, so little with each meal.
Yeah. Now what I used was my pharmaceutical grade. But you're going to use your lime flour that you got. And so you'll find out in your testing process as you go through it, whether you need to dilute it or not with distilled water, and you might not need to. So
Well, I need you by my side and I'm going to test it out.
it'll be fun.
Right, right.
Well,
So,
thank you so much for
yeah,
everything.
thank you so much, Carolyn.